Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to my final live chat of 2021. And Ace and I are still fighting over the mouse. Okay, so he's given me the control. I love control. Um, so yeah, we're almost through another year, and I'll be taking the next 2 weeks off from these live chats, but not my writing. I always write. I know many of you have a lot on your plates between now and New Year's, and as a kid, I'd love to say, see you next year. But before I go, I want to talk with you a little about names and why they're so important to me. Today, if I didn't mention already, is Wednesday, December the 15th. What is it, like 10 days until that day? Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my name was Chris Wilson or Jane Summers or Sue Winters or Barbara Allen? What if people didn't have an instant reaction on their faces when they first see me, when I say my name out loud for the first time? Their look might be curious, it might be acceptance, it might be trouble. I know in the first instant of my meeting someone whether or not I trust them. I trust my intuition, which is hardly ever wrong. Sometimes someone works overtime to make me like them, and I just want to throw up, walk away, cover my ears, and sing out loud, la 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 la. I can't wait to get away from them. I want to shower till the water runs cold. I'm talking women and men here. Sometimes I feel this person works really hard at being friends with me, like I'm a project to take on, a sort of living proof about how liberal and authentic they are, as if being associated with a person of color or someone with a different sounding name is a feather in their cap. And the reality is, my name is different, I am different, I look different. And sometimes there's a wee perception of me that is misinformed, perhaps by the media, perhaps by movies, perhaps by history. For years, I stayed home on December 7th, and last Tuesday, I wasn't even consciously aware of the date. I realized I had gone through the entire day without feeling some sort of fear, anxiety that someone in the checkout line might give me a nanosecond look of hatred and suspicion. And going back to my name, I had a professional experience just a few days ago with AI and algorithms. I won't go into the details, which aren't important, but I will say that I was mismatched solely on my name. I wondered about others using this source with names that sounded different, difficult to pronounce and spell, and how the artificial intelligence and the algorithms would match them up. Would they notice? Would they care? And again, it didn't matter if no one else in the world noticed or cared. I noticed, and I cared so much I had to ask about the research base. I couldn't not say something. I couldn't pretend there wasn't an elephant in the living room. I had to raise my hand and stand up and question. I had to say, something's not right here. Talk me off this ledge. I think there's something about my intuitively trusting at first glance, meeting, reading, or whatever that you want to call it. Trust equates vulnerability, as you well know. I've had two friends who had first and last names so wonderful that I always call them by both names. I always said their entire name, Barbara Allen and Sue Winters. I never called them Sue or Barbara. Their first and last names always ran together in my head and came out of my mouth in that same way. I could not separate their names. I don't know what that says about me. I love them both dearly and think about them. When I met Barbara Allen over 40 years ago and Sue Winters about 35 years ago, I trusted both of them instantly. Barbara Allen had a twinkle in her eye, and I loved the way she chewed the tips of her Virginia Slims. She ordered iced tea long before iced tea was de rigueur in restaurants around here. She reminded me of Jack Nicholson in Five Easy Pieces when he was ordering toast. No mayo, no butter, hold the lettuce, hold the chicken, and just bring me the toast. She would always order hot tea and ask for a large glass of just ice cubes. Sometimes she was charged for the ice cubes and sometimes she wasn't. After her tea seeped to her satisfaction, she'd then pour the hot tea into the cold waiting glass of ice cubes, and she'd clear her throat and we'd continue our conversation. Barbara Allen was also the first person I met who actually read romance novels. I think she was a bit embarrassed about this addiction because she'd wrap her books in book wraps she carefully made from brown paper bags. I believe she might have been the first recycler I ever met. She was making a new book wrap one day when I dropped by unexpectedly. She looked at me for a moment, then decided I was okay and completed her project. I watched her carefully crease the paper just so and encase her new romance book into it. When she was finished, I asked if I could ask a question. She nodded in a Barbara Allen manner, nose a bit in the air, teeth clamped to her cigarette. I asked her why she wrapped her books. I'd never read romances. I read Dick Francis and P.D. James mysteries. Drawing on her cigarette, she looked at me. People think that people who read romances are not very bright. They think the books are just about sex. I think they call them bodice rippers. I like romances. I go somewhere else for a while and then I come back to my life and I'm happy. We actually tried to write a romance novel together. We soon realized that our writing styles were so different. She was forever asking me, "Where's your outline for this section? Will they fall in love by chapter 2 or 3? How many chapters are in the book?" And even before I knew about planners and pantsers, I knew we were doomed to just be friends and not writing partners. Clearly, she was a planner. She had everything set up, the day, the hour, the weather, and what everyone wore. Well, I was, and still am, a pantser, meaning I am someone who writes by the seat of my pants. I mainly just follow my characters around. I remember our last effort at writing together. We were sitting in a restaurant one afternoon. Yes, that same restaurant where she had to do that whole drill every day about getting iced tea. She was reading what I had written, and she was mumbling. She asked, "Where are you going with this? What's the outline here?" One too many times, and I must have raised my voice as the waitress came over and shushed us. A few years ago, I found the partial manuscript Barbara Allen and I co-wrote in 1984. Her handwriting was so legible, and mine was terrible. She was so planned and had carefully written everything in this beautiful penmanship. Remember, back then we didn't have the luxury of carrying our not-so-portable typewriters everywhere. Sue Winters was someone I felt an instant affinity to when she carefully explained to me that she was in the 5th stage of her career. I politely asked her what her career was, and she laughed. "Life. This is the 5th adventure of my life." When I asked her what the other 4 had been, she said, "Doesn't matter, done. It's Act 5 now." I have long suspected that perhaps a not-so-wonderful marriage had been stage 1 or 2. Sue Winters wasn't rich. She wasn't beautiful. She wasn't interested in fashion. She was interested in people of all ages, education, cultures, backgrounds, places, hobbies, and careers, or not. She was surrounded by people who loved her and did things for her. She just loved them back, appreciated their talents, encouraged their imaginations, and admired their dreams. Her small house on the east side was always full of guests, some temporary, some permanent. There were a few who set up tents in her backyard for periods of time, and her garage had long ago been converted into a guest room. She was also very curious and very observant. I remember one conversation with her. She stopped me in mid-stride as I was hurrying past her. "What size are your shoes?" she demanded, pointing to the black flats I was wearing. I stood next to her and looked down at my feet, listening to what was being asked. 6, I replied. Sue Winters shook her head. "My shoes are lifeboats. They're a size 10. Then she flapped her hands up and down for a second. "Lifeboats!" And she shrugged her shoulders and gave me one of those side hugs, and we went back to what we were supposed to be doing. Barbara Allen and Sue Winters lived a life that was different. They didn't live life like the older women I grew up with, like my own mother. Both these women were comfortable in their own skin, loved the idea of life being a wonderful place to be. They enriched my life with their love, their acceptance, encouragement of my struggles, dreams, and adventures. They accepted me into their hearts and lives, and I will forever be grateful to them. Their names were wonderful and joyful to me. I know my name was loved by them, and I know I was loved by them. How about you? Have you ever paused to consider what's in a name? Let me know what you think of this, okay? You can leave a comment here or shoot me a message via Instagram or Facebook or send me an email. All the information is just down below here. Thanks for sharing your time this week with me. It's been interesting new territory for me to get to know new people this way. As I mentioned in the opening, we're going to be taking a bit of a hiatus during the new year. Well, actually until the new year. We'll get back to live streaming the first Wednesday of 2022, January the 5th. So there's homework for you while I'm away. If you missed any of my earlier live chats, you can find them all archived on my YouTube page. After our first tentative trial runs, all these Wednesday visits can be found in the Writer's Room playlist there. And if you haven't yet downloaded the Kindle file for this year's holiday novella, A Worthy Christmas, you'll find a link in the description below. As always, if you know someone you think would enjoy these chats, please share my YouTube link with them. I appreciate the chance to connect with you and others. And of course, new readers are always welcome as well. And there's a link to my Amazon page down below this video. We have some big plans for 2022 that I'm looking forward to sharing with you, and I will need your help with some of them. So just plan on being here with me on the 5th of January as we begin the new year together. So my standard reminder, YouTube counts everything, so it means a lot if you give us a thumbs up, and it's really helpful if you subscribe to my channel by clicking that big red button. If you've got any questions or comments, there are links to my Facebook and Instagram and my email address. Plus, the direct link for our January 5th get-together is there too. Until then, happy holidays and see you next year.
You're clear.
Can I ask you a favor?
Yeah, just a second here. Just a second. What the hell? Come on. There we go. Yes.
It has been sort of